Howdy Builders, welcome back to Cities Skylines. Have you guys been building your city and you start getting that industrial traffic and it's just congested, and you can't figure out how to resolve that issue? It really starts at the very beginning when you're developing your city and building your city. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about today and show you guys in here is how to manage the flow of your traffic with your industry from the very beginning, so when you're laying your city structure out, you can plan ahead for those opportunities to try to prevent them from ever occurring in the first place. Because once you get on the defense of trying to like counterbalance it, you start compounding other problems and other issues throughout your city, and it makes you want to quit that city. So let's talk about what you can do to really leverage your building and your planning to prevent that from happening from the get-go. So you are going to need trains in order to do this. I know they don't unlock later on in the game if you're playing vanilla, which is fine. Just be patient, but also know where you're going to place your lines and where you're going to place your stations. And that's what we're going to talk about in here. I do have this on unlimited. I typically play vanilla, as you guys know. I do have it on unlimited. This is a blank canvas, and I just kind of want to show you guys how I structure my industries out. And this works for both regular industries as well as the industries DLC. You can use it either way. Just remember that the more regular industry you use versus the industry DLC, the more you're going to have to add spaces. So let's get into this so you know what I'm talking about, and let's rock and roll. Okay. So the first thing we got to do when we're building our city is obviously build our connections. And just very similar to what you do for your residential areas, you still got to follow your highway hierarchy. Okay. So you have your highways, and then you get off your highways on your interchange. In this particular example, I have a diamond, just a generic. I just threw this together real quick. A diamond interchange. And then you have your artery. So this is our arteries right here. I prefer to use a separated artery similar to this because it prevents that lag of traffic. It just allows a single output of flow, and it doesn't really congest you as much. This works really, really well for me. You guys can use your avenues and lanes, or your avenues and your large roads if you want to. These just work way better for me. This is the method that I use when I build my cities. If you're following me on my build guide, you'll see this, and you'll see some different variations of me using this to really build my arteries. Then you want to go to your collector roads. Sorry, I drew a blank there for a second. So arteries to your collector roads. And when you're building your collector roads, you don't want to carry these through your arteries. Especially for your industries. You do not want to carry this through for your industries, because if you carry this through, you're going to create a huge traffic jam right here. Even if you put a roundabout in, it's going to be haywire all the time. Only use T's. This only works with T's. I promise you. You can put a throughway through initially in a young city. It was not going to bother you. But I promise you, once you hit that point where you're getting trains, it's going to be a disaster. 9 times out of 9 times, or 9 times out of 10 times. I don't know, something like that. Whatever. You guys get the drift, okay? T interchanges, just like this, is the most you want to do. You can upgrade this later on to a larger road if you need to. Typically, I try to keep them in the avenues as much as possible. So when I'm building my industrial areas, keep them small, keep them simple, and keep them spaced. Okay, those are the most important things to remember. If you're building, say this is a farming area right here, right? And we're using Industries DLC. We put our farms in here. We make it look all pretty if we're decorating and making it look pretty. And then if we continue to expand and expand and expand, these roads start getting congested very quickly. By keeping them separated like this and keeping them smaller, what you're doing is preventing the amount of congestion that you're going to get. Now, keep in mind, if you're throwing in your silos for farms, example, or logging camps or whatever for your forestry, whatever building you're going to be like holding things into, when you first plop them down, they send a massive transportation to your area. Don't let that stress you out. Just keep in mind that it's coming, and then don't pop a bunch of them down at one time. Do one, wait a minute, do one, wait a minute, and let that flow simmer down in there. But if you notice, I have these two sections separated. So this is a farming area. This could be a farming area over here. This may be the livestock or flour mills or whatever. This could be farming fields or whatever. But I have these separated. I'm keeping to that T interchange. I'm trying to mitigate as much traffic flow as I can in here. And by keeping it as T interchanges and not having a crossover, that's one less lane of traffic that I have to worry about. So I may have people turning here to get in and two people turning out to get in or turning this way to get in that way. It just depends. And then you can play around with this too. So I have the train line over here, and I have a train line over here that is connected to the same thing. If this is starting to get too congested right here because these people are trying to come over here, then move it. Move this up here and move this down here, right? And then you can kind of adjust that. But if that's the biggest thing you got to do at 20,000 population to mitigate your traffic over here, think about how much easier that is than having to rework your entire road system and move all your farms around and move everything around and rebuild everything. Just think about how much easier that is in the long run, right? Moving two little stretches of road versus moving an entire area. So keep it small, keep it simple, keep it plain, and keep it spaced out. Like just keep it spaced out. So what you're going to see here is two train networks connected to the same area right here, essentially. So what we have going on is two. You see, there's two lines here. This line right here, this top line, is going to be the external connection. I do not cross my external connections with my internal connections. So I have two separate lines. This gets expensive if you're playing on vanilla, but if you're running your city well and you're operating your expenses correctly, this is not going to cost you. This is actually going to save you in the long run, especially when it comes to traffic flow and getting those goods to the places they need to get to quickly. All right, so follow this. This one, external. I have my circle in here. This one's going to get a little busy because I only have two in here. But this one's going to get a little busy and it's going to service everything on this side, which you guys will see here in a minute. Keep it external. You don't want to cross your paths. It's almost like crossing streams or all those metaphors. You don't want to cross this, don't want to cross that, whatever you got going on. Don't cross them. Keep them separated. External, internal. If you follow this line, it's going to go from this farm area, follow this line over the external line into this area, which serves potentially another farm. Or we could do forestry over here. Whatever we end up doing, we can move this around based off of where we're at, but it still serves that internal purpose, right? So you see how I have these separated, T interchanges, T interchanges, T interchanges. These would all be separate industrial complexes for me, and then I may have some houses in here or some businesses in here. I may fill these other areas up with other things so that it's not congested of all industry traffic right here all the time. There's other things in here as well that are, for one, giving people walkability to the jobs, and two, providing a break and not putting all your industry in one area is going to really cut back on the amount of traffic that you have. So there's a lot of different places you can build industry. You can build it here, you can build it here, you can build oil over here. There's some farming and forestry over here. There's you have an unlimited amount of resources in a lot of these cities. You just got to space it out to get it where it needs to be. All right, so potential farms over here. That would be my plan. Farms in here because there's a lot of fertile land, and we have places we can put some flour mills and little um, cattle places and different things like that. Other fields, and then we have places for our fertile stuff like our fields. I have this internal connection here, so all of this would serve this. We may end up moving this, so it may serve better over here than here. So we can just move it down. Just add the line down, carry it over just like we did here, and add the train station over here. I wouldn't add two to this one area. I would just add one and make everything funnel to that one. And that'll prevent some of your traffic. So once you get your internal line starting connected like this, keep in mind that you're going to need to expand it. So here, this would be forestry over here, but we can still have it on our internal line because eventually this internal line is going to connect to downtown down here. And or this is where I would put downtown, somewhere around in this area right here. And there's going to be a lot of commercial down here. So I'm going to have a train station over in this side of the city or this side of the city that is servicing all that and getting the goods from the industry area to that area. And it cuts back on all the traffic in this middle section of the city that would normally be trucks driving from the industry to the commercial places. Cuts back on all that and literally brings the train line down here and drops it off, and the trucks go from the train line to the location, back to the train line, or they may just go disappear altogether, but they may go back to the train line and then come back, right? So now you're using the train line as your mode of transportation to get goods from one end of the city to the other versus using the roads, which is essentially going to cause traffic. Very similar to using mass transit. You want to treat this very similar to using your metro lines or your tram lines or your bus lines. You're trying to get the most efficient way to move your goods, your people, your products from one end of the city to the other without causing traffic jams. Utilize the resources that the game gives you to your advantage. And train lines, I promise you, is the key to success. You just got to learn how to separate them and set them up to move your goods around your city so it's not interrupting the flow of traffic in your city. So follow this main line right here. So it goes here, comes over here, and it stops. I'm not going to have it go any further. It's just going to service this forestry over here. It comes back and it splits either direction. So we could have a train line that comes this way. I essentially right now just have it stopping right there, but depending on how you wanted to do it, you could completely ignore this, make this line come down a little bit or whatever. You can restructure this in your city however you want. But I have a train line here. You can have it come down here and have a train station over here to drop off goods and a train station over here to drop off goods. It just depends on how you want to build your city and what the population is of your city. So the more dense your population is, the more train lines you're going to want to go to those densely populated commercial zones so that you don't run out of goods and you're getting that constant movement and you're mitigating that traffic any way that you possibly can. But see how I have another area over here? It's small, it's quaint, but it's getting a job done and we're getting goods produced and not producing a ton of flow of traffic in the city at any given time. The way that I have this structured is that these internal lines are going to feed into each other to service these external lines. So what you'll have is you could actually even build an internal line next to an external line. So depending on the structure of your city, you could actually put an internal line like right here that services this. And that's all it's servicing. So you have an internal line that connects to all the other internal stuff. They all of it merges to that one destination. The trucks come out and they'll go right here to the external line, and then they'll take the external line out. It's weird, it's crazy, but it works, and it's kind of interesting how it does it, but it's going to choose that path of least resistance. So depending on how you have your city set up and how much traffic you're trying to mitigate and the structure of your lines, depending on where you want to put your line at, essentially. Like we could move this over here. We could even like move it over here and add like a little road that comes over and over to feed to it. It's gonna get a little congested probably because everything's gonna go to that one line. That's why I kind of have them separated a little bit here and there. Um, but you can kind of move these around. You guys are you know knowledgeable enough in the game to really take your game skill to that next level. So this is just a kind of like rough draft of what I would do in my cities. So if you're watching my build guide, um which I'm gonna add another episode to soon. If you're watching my build guide, you're kind of seeing the structure of this playing out. I just haven't unlocked trains yet because I haven't got that high of a level yet. So if you're watching that, you're seeing a very similar situation playing out with how I'm developing my industries in my city, how I'm spacing them out, keeping them relatively small, and preparing myself for future train lines and future transportation to move in and around the city, the goods that we need to, and kind of like main thoroughfares. So if I have a industry that's closer to downtown, so say this is a forestry over here and downtown's right here, I may not need to build a train line from here to here, right? I may just build like a connector road, but I don't want it to get too crazy, so I'm not going to build a ton of forestry over here. I'm just going to build enough to service whatever commercial that is over here that's going to need the goods that this is producing. So I hope you guys found this video helpful when it comes to structuring your industries out. I know it's very, very common to just zone, and like you just get this huge, giant mass area of industry over here. I've done it. I ain't gonna lie. Like I'm guilty of it. And like you just get these huge mass areas of industry. The problem that you run into is now you have all this uh, all this traffic everywhere. So if you've watched my Eiffel Tower video, you'll see what I'm talking about. Like some of the areas have really good traffic flow for maybe the the vehicles getting around, but really poor train traffic, right? Or they may have really good train traffic, but really poor vehicle traffic. That was years ago that I built that city to get the Eiffel Tower, but it's a great example of like how like concentrating your industry to one area can really kill you on your traffic flow, and also combining your lines. So if you're crossing your lines and having internal and external on the same line, what you see in that video, I promise you, is going to probably drive you crazy. It's going to be like watching, scratching nails on a chalkboard. It is crazy. I'll link the video at the end of this video in case you guys want to go see what I'm talking about, and then you can definitely see that in there. But I hope you guys find this video useful and helpful. If you did, hit that like and subscribe button. Definitely gives me a thumbs up. Put some comments in there about what you liked about it, or if you want me to expand or kind of show some examples of how this plays out in cities. I'm working, if you want a really good example, like more recent example of this, go to my build guide. You'll see that in the build guide as well. As I'm building through the industries part of that, you'll see how I'm starting to lay the structure and foundation for this type of structure in that city. So I hope you guys hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. I do appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video.